y'all just don't even know what this means to me to be standing in this hall. In 1970, before you were even a thought, in the mind of God or in the seed of your parents, I was in an oratorical contest as a junior at East High School, and the great victory for us as state champions was to have our national championship here at Stanford in this very church. And as I stand here today, I lost the contest, but I won the prize. Wow. I know, I came in today and I went, oh my gosh, I made it. Dean Shaw, that introduction moves me because one of my goals as a human being has been to evolve to the point of being a student in the spiritual realm, enough that I could be able to bestow some of my knowledge, the information I've gathered over the years from thousands of interviews, in such a way that I could call myself a teacher. And I dared not call myself a teacher until hearing it from you. And because you have said I'm a teacher and you are here at Stanford, I believe you. I'm going to take that. So thank you. It's been an amazing day here with you all. First of all, I have one of my South African daughters. I have 20 girls in college in the United States, and one of them, Shade, is here at Stanford. And she's a sophomore, and we came to Stanford, I think, late 2011 or early 2012, I can't remember. And I remember landing on the campus with her, and we didn't know if she was going to get in yet. And she, as we got into the car and we were pulling away, she said, "Mama, these are my people." And I can understand why. Just being here in the presence of such energetic, stimulated brilliance makes us all want to be better. So I wish I could have gone to this school, and I'm thrilled that I have one of my daughters who does go to this school. I love everything that happens here in the bubble. And I'm really excited to be a part of the Harry Rothburn lecture series, because I have spent hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and thousands of hours talking to spiritual leaders and teachers, and not just spiritual leaders and teachers who have been deemed so, but thousands of people who came from levels of dysfunction, who came from levels of pain, who were suffering, who were challenged in their progression of trying to be the best human beings they could be. And they allowed themselves the opportunity to come on our show, the Oprah Winfrey Show, and share their stories. I am one who believes in the sharing of stories. I believe in the process of sharing, period, because I know that all life gets better when you share it. And those thousands of people who have been guests on the show, and many of them who are also audience members, have been my greatest teachers. And I would say that one of my gifts, and it's everybody's job to know what your gift is. So when I talk about my gift, I'm not bragging, it's just fact. It's just a fact. It's a gift. Yes. One of my gifts that I've had since I was a little girl growing up in Mississippi, being raised on a tiny little acre farm with my grandmother, is that I knew how to pay attention. I was a great observer of life. And I grew up believing that I was indeed for sure God's child. It's because every Sunday I sat in our little church down the road, a dirt road from where my grandmother lived, no running water, no electricity. I was saying this to my great niece who's 8 the other day, and she said, "It sounds like Little House on the Prairie." And I go, "It kind of was." No running water, no electricity, but the church is down the road from us. And we could hear the singing as I was getting dressed for Sunday school. And I'd always sit on the left-hand side, the left pew, in the second row. And I would listen to the preacher preach about the Lord thy God is a loving God, and sometimes he would say the Lord thy God is a jealous God. But most important, I heard him say, you are God's child, and through God all things are possible. And I literally took him at his word, so that by the time I was had to leave my grandmother because she became ill, and I was sent to live in Milwaukee with my mother, who had 2 other children, I got beat up on the playground because when people would ask me, who is your daddy? I would say, Jesus is my daddy. Sometimes he's my brother. And God is my father. But what I now know and have learned, that my view of God, although I call that God in a box, and although that has my vision of God has expanded to be inclusive of all things, all. God is all, God is law, God is all, in all things. Not just the guy sitting up with the beard. And now that view of God has expanded, I still understand how important it was for a little colored girl. We weren't even black yet, not to mention African American. You know what I mean, Harry? A little colored girl in Mississippi for whom there was no vision of hope or possibility. My grandmother's greatest desire for me, as she had been a maid and her mother before her had been a maid, her greatest desire was that I would grow up one day and be able to do the same. And she wished for me that I would be able to, she used to say, I hope you get some good white folks when you grow up. I hope you get good white folks who treat you good. So my grandmother would have no idea of the life that I now lead with good white folks who are working for me. She just wouldn't get it. She wouldn't get it. She wouldn't get it, but somehow I think she must know, and she's up around in the spirit realm saying, Lord have mercy, I didn't see it. But I now know that having that belief system, that something greater than me was in charge of my destiny, of my fate, that it wasn't just me alone having to survive for myself, is the value, is the rock that has sustained me. So my vision, my perception, my understanding of what it means to be a universal citizen has grown as I came to understand Acts 17:28, my favorite Bible verse that says, in God I move and breathe and have my being. So my every attempt in life has been, since I was a little girl, to be in that space that I call God, to literally live in the breath that is God, to live in the breath and allow the breath to breathe me as God. And that is the reason I see I have been able to manage fame, handle the success, grow in grace, grow in the wisdom and glory that is offered by that space that I know to be God. Because in God, I live and breathe, I move and breathe, and I have my being. And everything that I do and all that I am comes up and out from the center of that space, even when I didn't know what to call it. So I have paid attention to my life, because I understand that my life, just like your life, is always speaking to you, where you are, in the language, with the people, with the circumstances and experiences that you can understand and interpret if you are willing to see that always life, God, is speaking to you. Now, it took me a while to actually really get this and to understand it, but once I did, I started paying attention to everything. And one of the reasons why I can now accept the fact that I can offer my gatherings of information and wisdom and call myself a spiritual teacher is that every single person who ever came on my show, and I hear there's like 37,000 guests I've talked to, a lot of them came from dysfunction, and a lot of them wouldn't appear to be teachers, but every one of them had something to say that was meaningful and valuable and that I could use to grow myself into the best of myself, which is what all of our jobs are. Your number one job is to become more of yourself and to grow yourself into the best of yourself. And so I had a lot of great teachers, as we all do. I mean, old boyfriends are some of the best teachers. Woo, boy, I got a doctorate degree for one. I'll tell you about that later. But I was doing an Oprah show about a decade ago. One of my greatest teachers was a man named John Diaz. We were doing a show called Would You Survive? And on Tuesday, October 31st in 2000, Singapore Airlines Flight 006, a Boeing 747 from Taipei to Los Angeles, took off with 179 souls aboard. 4 crew and 79 passengers perished in that flight, a total of 83 fatalities. There was a typhoon rolling through at the time, and the plane went down the wrong runway. Now, what's interesting, John Diaz was on that plane, and he had several indications, which I'll talk about later, whispers, that he shouldn't have gotten on the plane, but he did anyway. He got on the plane, and he managed to be one of the survivors. And on the Oprah show, I was asking him, what do you think it was that you were one of the survivors? And I said, do you think it was your position on the plane? Because he was in first class and he was sitting on the right next to an exit door. And he said, yes, I think it might have been the position of the plane. And also my quick thinking, he says. And believe that there was some kind of divine intervention going on there. He goes, no, I'm not a religious person. I do not believe that it was anything divine. I don't believe that. I did see, he said, as I got knocked back into the plane, that it looked like Dante's Inferno, with people strapped into their seats and just burning. And it seemed a bit to me, as I turned and looked backwards, like there was a light coming out of the tops of their heads. I guess you could call it an aura was leaving their bodies. And some lights were brighter than others. It changed, he said. It changed me. It gave me a new kind of spirituality, in a sense, that I now believe somehow, I don't know how, but life continues on somehow through that light. And I thought, I'm not a religious man, but I thought the brightness and dimness of the auras were how one lives one's life, so to speak. So that's one of the major things that really has changed with me since then, he says. I want to live my life so my aura, when it leaves, is one of the brightest ones. I got chills when he said that. So much so, nothing to do but go to a commercial. We'll be right back. What do you say after that? I want to live my life so when my aura leaves, it's very bright. That's one of those moments that happens and you know that it's bigger than a show about survivors. Because I always knew that when I am moved, at least a million other people might be too. Because if I can feel it, and there are 20 million people watching around the world, it means that somebody else also felt and heard the same thing. That's what connection is. So I thought a lot about that. And thought about it, obviously, in thinking about, in preparing to talk to you all today, about how does one lead a meaningful life? Because ultimately, isn't that what we all want? We want to lead a life so that however we transition, people can say, wow, that was a bright one. That was a bright light. First of all, I think that it comes from a deep sense of awareness about who you are and why you're here. It comes from being in touch with, on a regular basis, the appreciation and the holy gratitude that should fill each of our hearts on a regular basis, just knowing what a privilege it is to be here and to be human. Close your eyes for a moment, will you please? And breathe with me. Just close your eyes. And if you will, put your thumb to your middle finger and gather your other fingers around. And let's feel the vibration and pulse of your personal energy as you take 3 deep breaths with me. Inhale. And as you exhale, just feel the vibration, energy, blood pulsating through your body, through you. And another inhale. And another inhale. And keep your eyes closed. And let's just think about this day. This day that you have been graced to breathe in and out thousands of times. This day where many of those breaths were taken for granted. You just expected the next one to come. But the truth is, there's no guarantee that the next one comes. This day, how you started your day, what your thoughts were this morning, how you've carried yourself through this day, how you've been allowed to have encounters and experiences, some challenging, some more life-enhancing, that pushed you forward another day of being here on the planet Earth as a human being. Let's just think about that. After all you've been through, in this day alone, and the many days and years past, how you got here to this prestigious, esteemed university, the choices you made that have brought you to this day. Open your heart and quietly to yourself say the only prayer that's ever needed. Thank you. thank you. Thank you. You're still here. And you get another chance this day to do better and be better. Another chance to become more of who you were created and what you were created to fulfill. Thank you. Amen. Open your eyes. That's how it starts. That is the foundation for meaning and purpose in your life, is to bring yourself back to your breath. In all situations, in all ways, in all challenges, to know that the value of just still being here matters. It's really big that you're here. It's really big because everybody here has been called from the ethers to do the will, to fulfill the highest expression of yourself as a human being, and to do that in truth. How do you do that? Well, I think you let every step you take move you in the direction of the one thing all religions can agree on, and that is love. In all the conversations I've had with so many people over the years who run the gamut of all kinds of emotions and emotional dysfunctions, I've come to understand that what Marianne Williamson said is true. There's really only two emotions that count, and that's love and that's fear. And in all of your movements through life, you're either moving in the direction of one or the other. In order to have a meaningful life, you have to choose love. And not the schmaltzy-daltzy kind of love, but the kind of love that really counts. The kind of love that when everything else is going wrong and nobody even knows you're choosing it, you choose love. The kind of love that says, I'm here for you no matter what, you choose love. The kind of love that means you make the right decision even when you know the other person is wrong. You choose love because love is not just, it's a verb, and it's everything that represents kindness and grace and harmony and cooperation and reverence for life. So when you choose when you're in a situation where you are mad and you know that they are wrong, if you can go to that space of the breath, in God I move and breathe and have my being, and make the choice just to move a little closer in the direction of that which is going to bring you grace, that which is going to honor yourself, and by honoring yourself, you can't help but honor the other person. I have learned to choose love over fear, to choose love and peace rather than choosing to be right. That was a big lesson for me. Do you want peace? Do you want love? Or do you want to be right? For a little while, I was like, I'd rather be right. Rather be right with a little bit of love. The other thing that, I am a Christian. I grew up Christian, raised in the church all day long on Sundays. Bible school in the morning, Sunday school in the morning, church in the afternoon, Bible school at night, prayer service Wednesday night, choir practice. I grew up in the church. I would say I don't go to church as much anymore. My church is nature for me. My church is my life. I experience church in every encounter with every person. I try to have church. And I try to live my life from the tenet of the law, the third law of motion in physics. If I had only one wise offering for you, it would be this one. The third law of motion, and all the laws of the universe actually, are, in my mind, divine laws. And my favorite is the third law, which says, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. There are lots of different religions and philosophies that call this other things. In this country, sometimes we call it the golden rule. What I know for sure is it doesn't matter what you do unto others, it's already done unto you. So anybody who's seen the movie The Color Purple, there's a line in there when Miss Seeley leaves and she says to Mr., everything you done to me, and she holds those two fingers, already done to you. That's the third law of motion. Newton didn't know that Seeley was going to articulate it that way, but everything you done to me, already done to you. So that is the tenet that rules my entire life. Or the action. There is the intention for the thought. And if there is one force field that rules and dominates the meaning of life for me, it is living my life with a pure sense of intention. Now, this came to me because I used to be one of those people who had the disease to please. I said yes many times when I knew I should have been saying no, and then I would be mad at myself for saying yes. Anybody ever done that? You say yes, then you're mad when they come back again. Because when you say yes, when you really mean no, people follow the intention of the yes. Because why do you say yes? You say yes because you don't want the person to be upset with you. They're not. You don't want the person to be angry. You want the person to think you're nice. They do. And that is why they keep coming back. I couldn't understand it. I just gave you some money. And now you are back. Oh, that's because I didn't really state the truth. And so now you think me giving you the money meant I wanted to give you the money, and that's why you're back asking me for some more. So I tested this principle of intention when I first came to discover it in Gary Zukav's book, Seed of the Soul. I was like, I'm going to see if that intention thing will work for this disease to please, because people are always bothering me. So this is what I learned through intention. Nothing is showing up in your life that you didn't order there. If it's there because you needed to see it. So I have a big life, and things show up for me in big ways. So one day Stevie Wonder calls me. I'm not name dropping. It's true. He'd call me. No brag, just fact. It was Stevie. And he didn't call to say he loved me either. He was calling. He was calling because he wanted something, but that's okay. And I, at the time, this was early on, because when I first started making money, and it was, my salary or my earnings were published all over the place. I mean, the first year I was like, really? Did I make that much money? Oh my God. It was very difficult for me to figure out where my boundaries were, because I'd grown up poor and didn't have anything. So it's easy when you don't have anything and people ask you for money. And they say, I need $500. You say, I don't have it because I'm just trying to get my rent paid. It's harder when your multi-million-dollar salary is now in the paper and you get a lot of friends and cousins you didn't have before. So how do you set boundaries for yourself? I was having trouble setting boundaries for myself for even strangers. People would just show up at my door in Chicago and say, Oprah, I left my husband, please help me. And I would, because she knows I have it. So Don't try that now, though, okay? Don't try that now. I figured it out. So what I learned is that, the reason why people keep showing up is because my intention is to make them think that I'm such a nice person that you can ask me for anything, you can get me to do anything, I'm going to say yes, I'm going to say yes. So when Stevie called me this time, I thought I'd try out my first no on Stevie. Let's start big. He wanted me to donate some money to a charity, and I didn't want to donate to the charity because I have my own charities, and I care about a lot of people, but the problem is when you have money, everybody thinks you just want to give to everything. So every letter I ever get starts with, "We know you love the children." Yes, I do love the children, but somebody else is going to have to help the children. So I said to Stevie, no. And as a person who has that disease to please, I was waiting for him then to say, "I will never speak to you again. I will never call you. I will never sing a song for you." And he didn't. He just said, "Okay." "Okay? Okay, it's okay?" He said, "Okay, check you later." And what I learned from that is many times you will have angst and worry about things and put yourself in a state, like someone said this morning because their phone went off, they were mortified over a phone. I said, really? You will put yourself in a state when the other person really isn't even thinking about you. So learning that I could specifically determine for myself what the boundaries were for me, what I wanted to do, give my money, give my time, give of my service to who I wanted to give it to when I did, that I get to make that decision. And just because you get 100 requests a week doesn't mean you have to try to fulfill all of that. Just because you have all of these demands on your time and on you doesn't mean that you have to say yes. You get to decide because you're the master of your fate, the captain of your soul, as William Ernest Henley said in Invictus. And understanding that really changed the meaning of my life in that I was no longer driven by what other people wanted me to do, but took charge of my own destiny, making choices based upon what do I feel is the next right move for me. So being able to go continuously to that space that I call the power station of God, universal energy, the divine flow, being able to tap into the space where you and all of life and me and all of you in this room, all beings, all things are connected. We had a meditation this morning where we talked about entering that space. That space is real. You cannot, in my opinion, have a meaningful life without a life of self-reflection, of spiritual and moral inquiry, and knowing who you are and why you are truly here. Spiritual self-reflection, to understand who you are and why you are here. And when you understand the depths of that, and you allow yourself to tap into the space of that which is the force, the universal energy, the divine flow, and you do that with a sense of authenticity that only you can, that only your energy can bring, you become untouchable in whatever it is you choose to do. So one of the reasons I believe that I've been able to be so successful is because during the years where we had, fierce competition from other shows and other people, I would always say to my producers, you can't run their race. You can only run yours. And you really can only run what you're doing. You can't even worry about your own fellow producers. You can only run your own race. That lesson that Glinda the Good Witch gives to the Wicked Witch of the West when she says, "Go away, you have no power here," that's a powerful lesson. Because I have seen over the years in so many interviews and even in my real life experiences, people losing their power because you're giving your power to other people. You lose your power when you try to take control of somebody else's energy because you have no power in any energy field other than that which is your own. And your real job in life is to figure out, how do you master your field? How do you do that? By consistently choosing love, by living in the space of gratitude, and knowing that that power that you feel from time to time comes from a source that is greater than yourself. Because nobody gets out of here alone. Nobody. Nobody is making it alone. And when you are trusting when you are afraid, when you are sad, when you are unable to make a decision, when you are challenged, when you are moving in the direction of all that which is fearful, it's because you're trusting in your own power. I couldn't get here by my little bitty ego self. When you look at where I've come from, a little town, apartheid town in Kosciuszko, Mississippi in 1954, where there were more lynchings of black men per capita than any place else in the world, where you had to be off the streets, literally, when white people walked down the streets, where there was no vision or hope for you as a black man or black woman other than being a domestic or teaching in the colored school. And my ability to step into literally the flow and grace that I call God is what has gotten me here. And I consistently mind that, because having a spiritual life isn't something that you can attain because you already are a spiritual life. Pierre Teilhard de Chardin said, "We're spiritual beings having a human experience." I know this to be true. So it's not like you can go out seeking a spiritual life. You already are one. And the real job is for you to become aware of the soul's calling and the spirit that resides in, above, around, and through you. And be about the business of fulfilling that. There is no one else in creation like you. There's nobody like you. And what you've come to do and what you have to offer is like no other, even if they're all doing the same thing. I met a bunch of people today majoring in human biology. I go, ooh, a lot of human biologists coming out of Stanford. A lot of great ones. And although everybody's in the same class doing very similar things, no one brings the level of uniqueness and authenticity that you can bring. Nobody does it like you. And understanding that what you have to offer, what you've come to give to the planet, is your gift, your offering in a way that nobody else can, and how much that matters. It matters to you, it matters to the people that you love, and it matters to our planet that you are here. It's just, it's a miracle. It's a miracle that we get to be here. And when I think of my life and the fact that nobody really kind of wanted me in the beginning, my father had sex with my mother one time. Can you imagine? That was a powerful seed. Woo, honey child. But one time. And he wasn't in love with her. He said she was wearing a poodle skirt and he wanted to know what was up under there. And she showed him by an oak tree. Now got a yard full of oaks. I know that's where it all started. And to think that something as random as my mother's poodle skirt and my father walking out the door at that time, she had her eye on him for a while, so she was working it. To think that something as random as that would create a little Negro child in Mississippi who grew up and had and has had and continues to have the opportunities that I've had, that is, I can assure, that is nothing but grace. It's grace. It's grace because I was allowed to step into the flow of it and let it carry me to this moment. And I'm not telling you what to believe or who to believe or what to call it, but there is no full life, no fulfilled, meaningful, sustainably joyful life without a connection to the Spirit. I haven't seen it happen. And the way for sustainability is through practice. You must have a spiritual practice. What is yours? Well, for some people, it is going to church, and that's where they nurture themselves. I believe that creativity, artful expression, prayer, conscious kindness, empathy, consistent compassion, gratitude, all spiritual practices in the way of becoming more of who you are. So I started a gratitude journal. I mean, when I was journaling since actually I was standing here in 1970. I had actually have in my journal about visiting Stanford and what it meant to come here as an orator. And for years, all of my journals were filled with, he doesn't love me, I can't believe she did that to me, and this is what happened today. And about the late 80s, someone introduced the idea of a gratitude journal to me. Gratitude journaling has become a spiritual practice that leads to a more enhanced and meaningful life, and you can start it today. And I guarantee, if you did it for a week, you would see a difference. Because every day, and I'll do it when I go home, 5 things I write down that I am grateful for, or that brought me joy, or opened my heart space. And by practicing gratitude, what you realize is that you wake up in the morning thinking about what are those 5 things going to be, because some days there's only 3. And then you have to take a breath, inhale, that's 1, exhale, that's 2. Okay? I made my 5, that's all I got today. So practicing gratitude in a way that allows you to take stock of your life. That's why it's a spiritual practice, because you're now taking stock of your life. You're assessing where you are spiritually. And in order to maintain a sense of growing yourself forward, it requires also being in a place of knowing that after you've done all that you can, there's a wonderful song by Donnie McClurkin. It says, you just stand. There comes a time in everybody's life when you've actually done all that you can do and you really want something so badly, but it still isn't coming forward for you in a way that you feel that it should. I know that what is for you will come to you. I know that for sure. And I know that many times when it appears that something is happening to you, it is always, always happening for you, to strengthen you. Because my definition of power is strength over time. Strength times strength times strength times strength. So I'll leave you with my favorite story. I said this today. about The Color Purple. It's one of my favorite stories because it changed the meaning of my life and changed the trajectory of my life. First of all, when I was doing The Color Purple, I'd just come to Chicago and started a show called AM Chicago. And I'd ask my bosses for the time off. And I needed 2 months to do The Color Purple. And they said to me, you don't have 2 months. Your contract says you only get 2 weeks a year. So in order for us to give you the time off, you're going to have to give up your remaining time on your contract to do The Color Purple. I wanted to do it so badly that I said, all right, I'll give up the next 5 years of my contract in order to do it. What happened was after The Color Purple, after I filmed The Color Purple, and the Oprah show was so successful, becoming so successful, it was actually still called AM Chicago, the bosses at my channel wanted to renegotiate the contract. And my lawyer at the time said, remember The Color Purple. You never want to be in a position where something is that important to you to do and you can't do it because the boss says you can't. You want to be able to own yourself and make your own decisions about what's important to you to do, and that was something that's really important to you. So the fact that I had not been allowed the time for The Color Purple is the reason why I made the decision to take the risk to own my own show. And that has made all the difference in the trajectory of my career. But let me try to shorten this Color Purple story because it changed the trajectory of my life. I wanted to be in The Color Purple more than anything I've ever wanted in my life. I read the book on a Sunday. I got up, went back to the bookstore, got every other copy of the book. I passed it out to everybody I knew. I was clearly obsessed about The Color Purple. People see me come and go, here she comes, talking about The Color Purple. Here she come again. I literally would walk around with it in a backpack. I see all these backpacks. Y'all are loaded down here. I would walk around with it in a backpack in case I ran into somebody who hadn't read it. And I'd say, oh, you haven't read it? I have one right here. And as life would have it, because you're always drawing things to you, you're drawing energy to you, out of nowhere, supposedly, coincidence, no such thing. But I get a call from a casting agent saying that they're casting for this movie called The Color Purple. This movie called Moonsong. And I said, are you sure it's not The Color Purple? And he said, no, it's called Moonsong. Because at the time, Steven Spielberg didn't want anybody to know he was shooting The Color Purple. So I go and audition for the movie. I can't believe that God has allowed this to happen because I am auditioning with a character named Harpo. Do y'all know Harpo is Oprah spelled backwards? I think that is a direct sign from Jesus. That not only am I now auditioning, I'm auditioning with somebody named Harpo. Amazing. When all I'd really asked God, I said, God, please help me get in this movie. Help me get in this movie. I don't know anybody in the movies. I'm in Chicago doing a show called AM Chicago. I thought I could be script girl, best boy, whatever, the last credit on the movie. Bottom line is, a long time passed. I call up the agent, and the agent said, you don't call us, we call you. And I didn't call you. I hung up the phone. I was so upset. I decided to go to a fat farm. And I'm going to lose the weight. That's what they call them at the time. I'm going to the fat farm. I'm going to starve myself because now all the weight is caught up with me. I know they hate me because I'm fat. I said, I'm going to go and I'm going to lose weight. And I'm going to try to release this obsession that I have with The Color Purple. I'm going to try to let that go because now much time has passed. And I am on the track, running around the track, and I can hear my thighs rubbing together. And I start crying because, oh gosh, now my thighs are rubbing together and it's raining and my hair is getting wet. So I started to pray, and I I'm praying and I'm crying, and I'm asking God, God, please help me let this go. I'm obsessed. I want it. Reuben Cannon had told me that real actresses had auditioned for that part, and that I wasn't a real actress, and that Alfred Woodard had just left his office. So I thought, for sure, Alfred Woodard's going to get that part. And I'm running around the track praying and crying. And the way prayer works is you could pray, but if you don't release it, if you don't surrender it, it goes nowhere. It's just you talking to yourself. So I started singing this song. Do you know the song? I surrender all. I surrender all to thee, my blessed Savior. I surrender all. I sang and I prayed and I cried until I could release the pain, the suffering of the rejection that Reuben Cannon had caused me by telling me that I don't call you. And then I realized, I'm still carrying it around, so I won't be able to go to see the movie, so I'm going to now pray that I can bless Alfred Woodard in the movie. Let me bless Alfred Woodard so I'll be able to go see this movie. I start singing again. I surrender all. Please don't let me have now a grudge against Alfred Woodard who took my movie. Let me have peace in my heart about that. So I pray until I'm singing, I surrender all. A woman comes out and says to me that there's a phone call for you. And in that phone call, I was told next day, show up in Steven Spielberg's office. And if you lose a pound, you could lose this part. So I stopped at the Dairy Queen. But the point of the story is surrender. And the point of the story is, I thought I could just be script girl, best girl, whatever. I was just happy to be anywhere in the film. The point of the story is, God can dream, the universe can dream, your creation can dream, the flow of your life can dream, has a bigger plan and a bigger dream for you than you can ever even imagine for yourself. When I finished The Color Purple, Quincy Jones said to me, baby, your future is so bright it burns my eyes. And I say the same thing to all of you Stanford students, with this amazing gift to be at this institution and let your light so shine, your brilliance. Your future's so bright, it burns my eyes. The glory that the universe, God has in store for you is unimaginable to you. You can't even imagine it. You can't even imagine it. If you will surrender that which is yourself in alignment with the greater self and allow yourself to become a part of the force of all. Take your glory. It's waiting for you. And run with it. Thank you.